I don't even know how to start this kind of video. Boy, I really hope Onision doesn't see this. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? So, if you do not know who I am, my name is Aiden. I am 20 years old. I am a former Disney cast member, which I will get to in a bit, and I am a YouTuber. And that is basically the Aiden Schultz that some of you have come to know and love for the past 3 years. But more recently, there's been a side of me that I've been trying my absolute hardest to keep hidden for a little while now. And that's what I want to address in this video, because I know that if I don't talk about it now, then I'm probably never going to talk about it. And honestly, I think right now will be the perfect time to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Now, really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and put a sort of viewer advisory discretion kind of thing on this video, because I'm going to be addressing a very serious and sensitive topic, one that I don't think very many people talk about. And there may be a few swear words here and there, but don't worry about that. I mean, we're all children, right? So, guess let's get it over with. So, for the past year and a half now, I have been struggling very heavily with an eating disorder, more specifically bulimia nervosa, or bulimia for short. Now, what is bulimia, some of you may ask? Well, from my perspective, my paraphrase definition, bulimia is essentially a mental disorder that consists of a binge cycle, overeating, followed by a purge cycle, vomiting, puking, whichever word you want to use to describe that. Now, if any of you have been watching my content since around March to June of 2019, you've probably noticed a bit of a change in my bodily appearance, more specifically, my face. And you'd be right about that, because between March and June of 2019, I had went from around 190 pounds to about 160, 155 pounds. And not in a healthy way, because here's the thing. One, I documented some of it, so it's on video, and two, I've lost a lot of weight before, okay? From literally the beginning of 2016 to mid-2017, I went from 210 to 150 in a very healthy way, okay? A year and a half, 60 pounds lost. That's great. But for one thing, I was a bit shorter than I am now. I'm 6 feet tall now. I was probably maybe like 5'10" at the time. But that was mainly due to my sports career. You know, I had been playing soccer and running track, but this weight loss from March to June of 2019 was because of this bulimia. Okay, I had just been overeating, then purging, and working out in between. And by working out, I mean doing upwards of 2 hours of cardio almost every single day. So we'll go ahead and go to June of 2019 when I went to Walt Disney World. But while I'm always excited about going to Disney World, believe me, I really am. I'm a huge Disney nerd. Okay, if you know me personally, you'll know that I love Disney. But I wasn't as excited about the vacation as I normally would be. And this is where I want to say that eating disorders can really take a toll on your mental state. And what I mean by that is that I wasn't necessarily focused on the vacation, but more or less on the food. And I'm not talking about the foods that I would be trying, like foods that I'd be excited to try, but really the foods that I would be trying my absolute hardest to avoid. And that's the thing with eating disorders, okay? They really change your perspective on food, and not in a good way, okay? Eating disorders can make you very selective of your food choices. And that's how I was from March 2019 to this point. So summer of 2019, you know, it was fun. I hung out with my friends quite a lot, but I was still binging and purging, and it sucked ass. But now we're gonna go ahead and fast forward to around December, late December of 2019. And at that time, I got the chance to move to Orlando, Florida, and work at Walt Disney World. And that was an absolute dream come true for me, okay? Before then, I'd been wanting to work at Walt Disney World since 2006. So 13 years, over 13 years. Now again, being the kind of guy that I am, who'd been wanting to move to Orlando, Florida for almost all his life, the thing is, I was still so worried about the food choices that I would be making and whether or not this bulimia was going to stick around. Because for me, I thought this bulimia was just like the flu. Like it would stay for a couple days, maybe a week or two, then it'd go away. But no, it ended up being a multi-month, year and a half thing. And from December 2019 to March of this year, 2020, I was still binging and purging in my new house in Orlando, Florida. The place that I could only dream about living in for a long time in my life. And to my surprise, I mean, none of my roommates even noticed. At least I hope they didn't notice. I mean, 2 of them I've told about everything. But when I say December to March, I say that because Disney ended up closing all their parks worldwide due to the coronavirus, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And we were put on furlough till around June to August, at least from my workplace that I was at. And that was honestly the worst point in my life with this bulimia, with this eating disorder, because not only was I away from my dream, not only was I separated from that, but just being stuck in this home for 5 months, it really took a toll on my life. And not for the better, okay? For the absolute freaking worse. And from March to July of this year, I had went from around 165 pounds, yes, I gained some weight, but I still hated that, to around 140 pounds. And here's the thing, I haven't weighed 140 pounds since I was maybe 13, 14 years old. So think about that. A 13, 14-year-old, probably maybe 5'5", 5'6", weighing 140 pounds, that's normal. A 6-foot tall guy weighing 140 pounds, no. Okay, and if you guys have seen some of my more recent videos, just look at my arms. Look at my arms in those videos. I look borderline anorexic. And not only that, but concerns over my health were growing. From my friends, to family, to even myself. But the thing is, yes, I was aware of what I was doing, and yes, I wanted to try and stop it, but what the hell was I supposed to do? Okay, I didn't know how to approach this. I didn't know what to do. And that is what I think is the absolute worst part of having an eating disorder, is that it can honestly fuck up your brain, okay? It can fuck up your thought processes. So throughout the summer, I just kept binging and purging 3 times a day, up to 3 times a day, just out of boredom. Because that was the thing, I was never truly hungry, at least maybe in the mornings I was, but most of the time I was just eating out of boredom because we had nothing to do. We were trapped in the house for 5 months. But not all hope is lost, right? Well, on July 28th, I had received a call from Disney asking me if I'd be willing to come back and work. And this is a call that I was not expecting to get, okay? Being part-time, having the lowest seniority, being one of the last people to go and work at Caribbean Beach, I didn't think I would ever get a call. I figured they'd just lay me off completely. So while I will admit, yes, I was pretty freaking excited, at the same time I wasn't. And that's for 2 reasons. 1, almost every job in Central Florida has absolute pay, and 2, my mental state. And the thing is, I didn't know what to do with myself at that point, okay? I absolutely hated myself. And going to Central Florida to go back to work during a pandemic with an eating disorder isn't the best idea. And it honestly sucks, and I'm honestly ashamed to say that I came to that reasoning when it was too late. But because I didn't really want to forfeit this battle that I was facing head on, I decided, you know what? Yeah, I'll move back to Florida. Why not? And let me tell you, that was one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. Because 1, I was getting even less hours. Being part-time, I would have been working maybe 1 day a week, not even making $100 off of that shift, and then having to pay $700 for rent. Now mind you, the house that I was living in, yes, it was very nice, but at the end of the day, by the time I left, it was falling apart. But I was still binging and purging like hell, and I didn't even know what to do with myself. I mean, hell, my dad and I had a talk before I left, and he told me to not go to 7-Eleven and Speedway and spend all of my money on junk food. But guess what? I still ended up doing that because that's what my eating disorder wanted. And that's how eating disorders work. And that's something that not a lot of people realize, is that they can also take a toll on your financial health. So, going into the end of August, you know, I posted a few vlogs, I celebrated my birthday at Magic Kingdom, all is good, right? Well, no. So that was when I started to get serious. And that was when I started to ask God, you know, what should I do? Should I continue living in Orlando, Florida, 1,000 miles away from my only form of support, continuing to binge and purge, continuing to make an absolute joke of a check, and just continue to be miserable? Or should I go back home to Ohio, to my form of support, to my most loving, caring, kindest family I could ever ask for, and try to find some treatment? Well, it took a little bit to get an answer, and it wasn't until I was doing laundry, of all freaking things, and I was talking to my mom, and it just hit me. It finally hit me that what would end up happening ultimately was my biggest worry of I would have a binge purge cycle before bed, go to bed, and not even wake up. And that is what ultimately got me to make easily the best decision of my life, to say goodbye to Florida, say goodbye to Disney, and come back home to Ohio. And I did just that. Now here's the thing, and I will admit, normally when I leave Florida and Disney, I do shed some tears like a little pussy, but this time was different because not only was I actually excited to go back home to my family, considering how young I am, but I knew that home was where I needed to be. And thankfully, not only was my family in Florida to help give me the perfect goodbye, but I also had my dad chauffeur me for 22 hours back to Ohio. So, what happened next? Well, I came back home to Ohio. As you can see, I'm back in my bedroom, and I took some breathers, binged and purged for a bit, I will admit, and tried my hardest to find treatment. And praise the Lord that I did. And it was in late September, 2 months ago, that I was able to ultimately change my life for the absolute better. And just a week ago, I actually graduated from treatment. And I could not be happier with myself right now, because not only have I been sober for 2 months now, and I know to some 2 months seems like a very short amount of time, but for me it honestly feels like 2 years. But all in all, I just feel so much happier than I was just a few months back. You know, before I went to treatment, I freaking hated myself. I hated everything about me. But now, I'm starting to actually like myself, to appreciate myself. Now, I don't by any means love myself, but I definitely appreciate myself a lot more and my accomplishments. Because that's the one thing, I've never really had that feeling of being proud, okay? That's probably because of my beliefs, but who knows? But this is one of those times where I actually feel proud of myself for what I've accomplished. For me, being even a week sober was a feat that I never thought I would have seen. So, all in all, things have been going great since I've been home, and I do not regret this decision one bit. So, what's next for me and my crazy ass life? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and post a follow-up video on Friday, talking more about the future of this channel and where I see it going within the next few years. But before I go, I want to just go ahead and apologize for just not being open and honest with you guys. As a YouTuber, as a creator, that's the one thing that you need to do, is be honest, be open with your viewers. And that's something that I didn't do. And I'm honestly very sorry about that. So starting today, things are gonna start changing. And I just really hope y'all are ready for what's next. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Take it easy everyone, stay beautiful.